One of the biggest problems in America right now is black privilege.
By the time I'm done with this video, he should be legally barred from ever using the word honest ever again.
Black privilege?
Still questioning how far this man went in thinking about this whole situation, because this is when somebody has just brought it down to one terminology and it's not common to me. When was there black privilege? When? Apart from the common one I know, which is what, supremacy, why not black supremacy then? Do you even have the guts to say about the biggest problems in America being black privilege? Are you okay? Anyway, in this video, this guy talks about how many times black people committed crime and they were not, publicized, or it was not showed in the media or in the news. But whenever somebody white did something, there was an uproar and it was all over. How does it get all over? If it's fair enough, how does it get all over? So he goes on to say how black people have committed crime against white people, and also talks about Asian, a number of them. And I think he was waiting for a green card somehow in his comment section or something. I don't know. I don't know his motive. But then this black guy has just brought it home, you guys. He breaks it down and debunks everything and explains for this guy. So I'm gonna roll up that video so that you watch about this guy talking about black privilege being the biggest problem in America, which I'm still trying to process. Educate me, mister. So in the coming videos, Daniel gets schooled by the elder and you've just annihilated him. So make sure you watch to the end of the video.
Let's be totally honest. One of the biggest problems in America right now is black privilege. For example, last month in Georgia, a black man shot and killed 4 elderly white people. The town it happened in hadn't seen a single homicide since 2018. And yet despite all of this, no one really seems to care. The story barely got any national news coverage. But when the races were reversed and a similar incident happened in Florida, there was a national outcry. Or what about when 6 black men attacked and robbed over 100 Asian women in San Francisco? Can you even imagine what would happen if 6 white men did that? Now, amazingly, in San Francisco, 85% of the physical assault crimes involve an Asian victim and a black perpetrator. And that's incredible because black people make up less than 6% of the population there. And yet for some reason, you'll never hear a Stop Asian Hate activist mention that. They'll blame white supremacy instead. There are literally hundreds of stories like this that you never hear about. Take, for example, James Lee Ramsey. Last year, he was convicted for assaulting an elderly Asian man, and despite the crime, he served less than a year in jail. So he was released from jail, and last month, he assaulted another elderly Asian person, this time an 88-year-old woman. But it's not just the elderly. An Asian high schooler was recently hospitalized after a black classmate stabbed him for fun. A few weeks ago, 6 black kids beat up a 15-year-old white kid for his shoes. Bystanders watched and recorded the whole thing. No one stepped in. This is terrible. Innocent people across America are being attacked, robbed, and even killed, and yet no one seems to really care because the people disproportionately causing it all have a certain skin color. And because everyone is afraid of being called racist, these incidents will just keep happening and nothing will change. The only way things will get better is if we start being honest about what's really going on. One of the biggest problems in America right now is black privilege. Let's be totally honest. One of the biggest problems in America right now is black privilege.
Let's be totally honest. By the time I'm done with this video, he should be legally barred from ever using the word honest ever again. Since we're from the same city and around the same age, I think I should introduce myself in the downright worst way possible. Let's begin.
For example, last month in Georgia, a black man shot and killed 4 elderly white people. The town it happened in hadn't seen a single homicide since 2018. And yet despite all of this, no one really seems to care. The story barely got any national news coverage. But when the races were reversed and a similar incident happened in Florida, there was a national outcry.
Let's just pause for a second and realize that 267,000 of you liked this video. I consider you all irredeemable. Do you know why? Level 1. Let's assume that everything he mentions in this video, including this scenario, is exactly as he represents it. I mentioned in a recent video that black people have had at least 1,500 anti-black hate crimes committed against them every year since 1991. That is the most out of any demographic in this country. If I sat in front of you with a tie on like I am right now and read through 7 instances of these hate crimes, I could easily paint the narrative that the biggest problem in America today is white privilege. But somehow one guy spouting off 6 individual instances is enough to prove his point. Level 2, his main gripe seems to be that we hear about these instances when they happen to black people, but never when black people are the perpetrators. And if I grant you that, you want to know what else we don't hear about? The vast majority of murders. That is because they literally happen every single day. So cherry picking 6 examples and assuming that the reason why we didn't hear about them is because the race of the perpetrator is downright bullshit and you have no justification for it. Level 3, and this is where it gets bad. Remember when I said assuming that every situation is exactly as he represents it? Hey, remember this first video that I made about him where he literally got caught lying about the studies and sources that he's using in his own video that would have been debunked if he just finished reading the sources that he used in his own video? Why am I telling you this as if it's leading up to something? Well, no reason. It's cause he did it again. Oh my god, you can't make this. He took this screen grab from the article and put it in his video. I copy and pasted it and came to this article in the AP. Hey, remember where the whole point of the video is that when black people kill white people, no one hears about it, but then when white people kill black people, everyone hears about it? Like, that's the entire fucking purpose of the video? Like, that's the whole reason why he made the fucking video, to prove that black privilege was a thing? So if we read the AP article, here's the sentence where it says Hampton had not had a previously recorded homicide since 2018, the part that he put in his video. Guess what the fuck happens when you scroll down? Longmore, the black person who shot the white people, had needed mental help for nearly a decade, but his family and officials couldn't force him to get the treatment. He had a mental breakdown in 2014, leading to an inpatient hospital stay. This is some more information about the shooter. Notice how we don't have any information about any motive besides the fact that he had severe mental health problems. We especially don't have a motive of race anywhere. Well, let's hop back over to the video and find this other headline. But hold on one second. Keen-eyed viewers, or frankly fucking eyed viewers, could see that it says 3 people dead after gunmen targeted black people in Jacksonville, Florida. Officials say. Guess what the fuck's in the article? This shooting was racially motivated, and he hated black people, the sheriff of Jacksonville said. You see why all of y'all are irredeemable? He left behind 3 manifestos for why he did the shooting. Even Ron the shithead said that he was targeting people based off of race. And that guy fucking hates African American studies. By the way, he killed only black people in a majority black neighborhood, and he had a fucking swastika on his gun. The fuck is this here for then? Oh, and it gets even worse from here, because I'm not gonna talk about your video anymore. If I went through every instance you misrepresented, I could probably blow you the fuck out of the water for 20 minutes. But it seems as though lying is not just something that Daniel does in his spare time when he's trying to rant about how black people are kind of evil. It seems to spill over into the real world, and it has really dangerous consequences. Since Daniel over here has been going on a media tour since 2022, getting featured on Fox News, posting videos like this entitled CNN Dissed Me, and even getting to speak with Tucker Carlson based off of a failure to Google something. When I say fail to, I don't mean it was an accidental miscalculation. You don't read half of an AP article and specifically not read the other half that tells you exactly why you're wrong by fucking accident. I mean a stroke of ignorance so irrational it has to be deliberate. JJ, what are you talking about? Spit it out already. You see, in the winter of 2022, there was a class at the University of Chicago that was scheduled to be taught entitled The Problem of Whiteness. This seems to have confused Daniel. I mean, every time he talks about it, he says,
Now, this class stood out to me because, what is it implying? That there's a problem of being white, or there's a problem of white people or whiteness or whatever?
Just based off that title, what is that suggesting? That there's a problem of white people or whiteness? I mean, it's totally racist. It's totally bizarre.
And college is meant for critical thinking and honest engagement. If you're anything like me and you see a provocatively titled college course, what do? You could email the professor and ask what the class is about. You could go into their office hours and have a discussion with them one-on-one. You could enroll in a class just to see what it's about, and if you don't like it, drop it and contact your advisor. Or pull your professor to the side and talk to them and voice your grievances about the course. What do you think Daniel did? He took to his 50,000 follower Twitter account, cried anti-white racism, and posted the professor's picture along with her email. Then he began the media tour, being featured on Charlie Kirk, Newsmax, and the Daily Wire. Elon Musk responded to him. And you know what's been going on this whole time since? A professor has been receiving death threats. Just pause to read some of these. Mind you, Daniel has already been fired from a news publication over harassment of a coworker. And as a result of this news story, Professor Journey received upwards of 80 threatening emails, and this article was published months ago. She has had to take extraordinary safety precautions just to teach a class on campus normally. And he has yet to stop talking about it to this day. Now question, Do you think any of these fuckwits actually Googled what the problem of whiteness would entail? Do you think any of these fuckwits actually realize that the field of whiteness studies has been long since substantiated, and if you have a problem with it, then you can take it up with the literature and the scholars who are responsible for the field? Do you think Daniel ever spoke to her about what the course is actually saying, seeing as he seems to be so confused about whether or not the course is saying there's a problem with white people? They fucking didn't, so I did. When we spoke, I made sure to get a rundown of what the course is generally about. She informed me that the class is about historicizing whiteness as a system of power, authority, and control, and how it structures our world and structural inequality. The class looks at the system of whiteness, not the problem with white people. The title of the course, while provocative, is an artistic reference. It's a callback to W.E.B. Du Bois's famous question, how does it feel to be a problem, he posed in 1903. It also alludes to a documentary in the 60s featuring James Baldwin that discusses how white people created the N-word, therefore it is white people's problem to sort it out. She made clear to me that the subcaption of the course is really the problem with white supremacy. This field of study is not just white people bad, nor is it new. It is backed up by over a century's worth of historical scholarship. Some things that they look at is the fact that white people just assume they are just white and not racialized like everyone else in the society when they are, and they explain how that is. They look at practices like redlining, food deserts, housing discrimination, the effects of white supremacy in law. It also looks at critiques of white feminism, and it touches on the topics of intersectionality. Or fucking any anthropological or sociological course in existence if you're in college. I pulled that much information from simply talking to the professor, and I don't even go to that school. But talking and engaging honestly is never what it was about. It's about propping Daniel up as another face of the culture war while being too fucking stupid or willfully ignorant to actually read past a headline, which is exactly what the fuck he did here. Rebecca is the second professor I've talked to in the last 2 months that are facing threats to their life and safety because of a course that they decided to teach, and the people who are too idiotic to actually look at what they're saying. So as long as people like Daniel exist, I will be here to make goofies out of all of you for endangering the lives of people who are doing their jobs and dedicating way more time and effort into these topics than you ever have for anything in your lives. Daniel, I hope you enjoyed the media tour. Good day.
The biggest problems in America right now is black privilege.
Are we delusional? Black privilege? Here we go.
Last month in Georgia, a black man shot and killed 4 elderly white people. The story barely got any national news coverage. But when the races were reversed and a similar incident happened in Florida, there was a national outcry.
Oh my god. Well, perchance, is there context surrounding both events that explains why the former wasn't described as an act of black supremacy?
The first one doesn't seem like a targeted attack because the dude literally lived there. Like he was neighbors with all of the victims.
You might say, well, you don't know if the one in Jacksonville was racially motivated.
This shooting was racially motivated and he hated black people, according to Jacksonville Sheriff T.K. Waters.
You might say, well, how on earth could you know that?
Well, apparently right before the shooting, he texted his father to check his computer, where his father found manifestos. Very specifically went to a Dollar General right next to a historically black school.
Also, by the way, I don't know if you know this,
There are a lot of mass shootings in the United States. Most of them do not make national news.
What about when 6 black men attacked and robbed over 100 Asian women in San Francisco? Can you even imagine what would happen if 6 white men did that?
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, I wonder what would happen.
I bet they'd get arrested and charged with hate crimes. I bet the governor of the state would immediately hold a press conference in that city about hate crimes against that community. I bet at least one of them would be facing up to 95 years in prison.
Side note, if you're about to argue that this would result in some sort of national outcry if these were 6 white men, I would like you to please name me one robbery. Any robbery. Unless you kill someone or steal the Mona Lisa, robberies do not make national headlines or result in public outcry. So I'd like to know what exactly would be happening to those 6 white men that are not happening to these 6 black men.
Amazingly, in San Francisco, 85% of the physical assault crimes involve an Asian victim and a black perpetrator.
Daniel, I've responded to you a few times on this app, and you have a habit of using sources that directly contradict you, but this is the very first time that you are contradicted not by the source, but by the blurb that you put over your face.
This does not say 85% of all physical assault crimes. This says that in a 2008 survey by the police department in which they analyzed 300 strong-arm robberies, 85% of the physical assault crimes in these strong-arm robberies, the victims were Asians and the perpetrators were African American.
A strong-arm robbery is what it sounds like. It's like snatching an iPhone out of somebody's hand and running away. So we're looking at a very specific crime, robberies, and then a very specific subset of that crime, strong-arm robberies, so not armed robberies, and then an extremely specific subset of that, because we're only looking at 300 of them, and then an even more specific subset of that, because we're only looking at those robberies that resulted in physical assault crimes, because a robbery by itself is not assault. Which means we are looking at a subset of a subset of a subset of one specific crime. And this is a very fun thing in statistics. Sometimes if you look at hyper-specific categories,
You'll find some very odd patterns that are very clearly coincidences, like the age of Miss America title holders compared to the murders by steam, hot vapor, or other hot objects.
but none of that even really matters because, by the way, this study doesn't even exist.
Here's the article on sfgate.com that mentions it. This survey is completely unnamed. It is not cited in any way, shape, or form. In looking for this survey, the only thing that comes up is this article that mentions it and other people referencing that news article.
There is no way to find out what robberies they were looking at, which precinct was doing this survey to begin with, or if this even happened, because this information, even if it exists, is not public.
I really doubt this statistic is legitimate because it seems to directly contradict the Bureau of Justice Statistics, which says that out of the 829,000 violent crimes against Asian Americans, 191,000 of them were by black perpetrators, which is a lot less than 75%. Secondly, San Francisco Police Department does not keep race data on its victims or on its perpetrators. It's nowhere in any of their crime dashboards.
You know what, let's give the benefit of the doubt and assume that this statistic is completely accurate, even though it definitely isn't, and try to ask ourselves, why would it be that such a high percentage of the perpetrators against Asian victims would be African American? First, let's look at the nature of the crime itself, a strong-arm robbery, where you're using your physical strength to steal an object off of somebody's person. This requires that, one, you are able to overpower and outrun your victim because you do not have a weapon, and two, that you do not have anything specifically in mind. You're not robbing a store, you're just taking whatever it is they have in their pockets. The latter shows that this is very clearly not a crime of passion. This is a crime of poverty, which means individuals that are more likely to experience poverty will be more likely to commit these very specific crimes. The nature of the crime itself also means that you're going to be more likely to target someone that you are more confident you are able to overpower or outrun, like the weak or the elderly. So a race with a large senior population will be more likely to be targeted. And crimes of poverty are also crimes of proximity, because it's difficult to travel long distances. So you're most likely going to be committing these crimes to people that are near you. And in quite a lot of urban centers, Asian communities and black communities are right next to each other, if not in the same place.
Right here is Chinatown and Two Bridges, the two largest Asian population centers in Manhattan. If you take a look at the map of the housing projects in New York City, 90% of the residents of whom are black or Hispanic, you'll notice that the largest chunk are here in Harlem, but the next largest bundle are right down here, right next to Chinatown and Two Bridges.
And if you live in New York City, you know that Chinatown is also a lot of old people. If you pass any park in Chinatown at, say, 8 in the morning, you will see 100 different old Chinese women doing aerobics. I always want to join in. They're like 80 years old and they have so many friends. All these things together make it seem a lot more likely that we'd end up with a statistic like this. Now, granted, I'm not as familiar with San Francisco as I am New York.
However, if this is Chinatown over here, and if this is a map of the public housing in San Francisco, it does look very similar. If this specific statistic from niche.com is correct, that means 25% of San Francisco's Chinatown is above the age of 65, which actually makes them the largest age cohort.
But obviously the thing this guy is trying to imply here is that black people hate Asian people. So let's even give him the fact that there might be animosity between these two groups. Now let's try to ask ourselves, why might it be that this animosity exists? I would wager that a large contributing factor to this would be the fact that quite a lot of white people will use Asian people as a way to dismiss black people's struggles. White people love pointing at Asian people and going, look, see, they made it, they're successful, therefore all the things that you're going through are actually just your fault.
If there's white privilege, then there has to be Asian privilege, because Asians make more money than whites.
And if you keep doing this, obviously it's going to build animosity between these two groups, which means that the solution to this animosity would be, one, not scapegoating Asians as a way to deflect from real-world issues, and two, trying to improve the material conditions of black people so there isn't this disparity to begin with. But you didn't do either of those two things. You just made a 2-minute TikTok in which you just showed a bunch of different news articles and basically said, wow, these black people need to be stopped. Do we understand how that's not gonna help?
Take, for example, James Lee Ramsey. Last year, he was convicted for assaulting an elderly Asian man, and despite the crime, he served less than a year in jail.
I'm sorry. You're making a video about black privilege, and you bring up the length of a prison sentence?
You have to know that black people on average receive longer sentences than white perpetrators. On average, 19% longer, according to the United States Sentencing Commission, who go on to say that violence in an offender's criminal history does not appear to account for any of the demographic differences in sentencing. You found like one guy and were like, wow, this sentence doesn't seem that long, and thought that like undid the mountains of evidence that show this disparity? This also isn't even that crazy. It was an assault charge, he pled guilty, he was sentenced to 3 years, and then yeah, was released released on probation about a year later. That's really not that uncommon.
But it's not just the elderly. An Asian high schooler was recently hospitalized after a black classmate stabbed him for fun.
Alright, so this is the point of the video where he clearly just Googled black crime and found every news article he could from the past 2 years in which a black person did something. This is not an argument.
A few weeks ago, 6 black kids beat up a 15-year-old white kid for his shoes. Bystanders watched and recorded the whole thing. No one stepped in.
Do you think this is unique to black people doing something? This is like a documented thing. It's called the bystander effect, where the larger the group is, the less people actually become to actually do anything. Because if a single individual asks to do something, then the sense of responsibility will be strong. But if a group of people are asked together, then each individual in the group will have a weak sense of responsibility. I made a whole TV show about this.
How you doing? It's what would you do?
No way.
By the way, I guess while we're talking about bystanders and viewing black or white perpetrators,
She seems annoyed by all the noise he's making, but says nothing. Now U-Ball is back. Or no one has directly confronted him. I'm just too good at thief. But what if now we swap out our thief, Kevin, for Gabriel? First up, these two sisters, who immediately notice that something's not quite right here.
Excuse me? Excuse me! Hey, what are you doing?
Oh, this is my car.
No, it isn't.
Here we are. Stand here. Show me your hands. What are you doing? This is my car. You thought it was your car? Yeah, I thought it was my car. How do we get the bag? It's just my laptop. What kind of car is this? It's Tell me what kind of car it is. Huh? It's your car? Yeah. It's Chrysler? Yeah. I'm gonna ask you to step out. You're gonna step out.
The only way things will get better is if we start being honest about what's really going on.
look, Daniel, I once responded to a guy on this app that said black people were biologically criminals. You're not there, but you're getting really close.
And the comment section does not disappoint. Someone says, bro, the privilege of fearing for their life. How can anyone say that is beyond me? This other one says, the way he talks makes it sound like satire. You've annihilated you, bro. You've absolutely demolished you, bro. JJ and you've dog walked this man. Honestly, to me, it seems everybody's using the word honestly, so I'm gonna go ahead and just use that too. These are just interesting to me. I could read these comments the whole day. But Mr. Daniel, thank you so much for making my day, because if it was not this what you created here, which is now that I'm making you being called cherry picking, there wouldn't have been any of this. So thank you so much. My goodness, what do you guys think? Make sure you comment in the comment section below. I'll be waiting.